All right, we welcome the prestigious Dr. Fredric Mao, who just got an incredible award. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. International Association of Counselors and Therapists, Hypnosis of the Year. Welcome, Dr. Mao.
Welcome, Ryan. I'm really glad you've had me on. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I was really surprised by the Hypnotist of the Year award, but it's always lovely for your peers to go, "Hey, you're doing an okay job." So I really appreciated that.
And this isn't your first award. I would click on your website and I had to keep scrolling. Award, 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 scroll, 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 award, award, award.
I've got a few of them. I'm always surprised when they show up. I think the first one I got was the Hypnoscience Award at the Hypnos Congress over in Zurich in Switzerland. That was about 2013, and I was completely shocked and just absolutely delighted.
Well, it's well deserved. I've seen your videos online and some of your work, and it's just incredible. And we'll dig into that in a moment. And I'm wondering if we could go rewind a ways back when you first got into hypnosis. So I'm wondering, what is it that got you into hypnosis?
Well, Ryan, I lost a card game with the devil.
Okay, tell me more. I like this.
I was I was working in a corporate job, and they laid off 200 people and closed the place down. It was definitely not my fault. And so I was running around doing consulting work and looking for honest labor. And so at the Chamber of Commerce here, I ran into a guy that owned a hypnosis shop, and he was like, "You should work with me. You would be great." And I think my response was, "That's completely crazy."
Yeah.
Uh, but then I thought about it, and I thought, wow, I'll bet it's fun at parties, and it is. So I decided to work with them some, um, just to pick it up as a party trick. Um, and then I fell in love with it, and I saw how powerful it was for people to make changes in their lives, and just um, basically bought the practice eventually, and um more training and more certification, and finally had people coming to me for more and more difficult things. So I decided to go out and pick up a second master's degree and a license as a professional counselor, which is a licensed mental health professional here in the United States. We do a lot of therapy, and my major modality is Ericksonian hypnosis. So, and the other couple of things I do are all related to that. So, that was my journey with hypnosis. Like, just fell in love with it. I actually herniated a disc in my back, September 11, 2001, and probably the only American old enough, to be able to remember that day that doesn't really remember it, because I spent the day mostly like doped up by the doctor.
Right.
Um, but I subsequently found hypnotic pain relief, and just that is awesome. And so that was a personal story there, and super effective for me, and it's a best practice. So yeah, that's kind of my journey with hypnosis.
I love that. I love the story of it. So you're talking about pain. I'm wondering how hypnosis not only alleviates pain, but also how it heals.
So, back in 2019, the Department of Health and Human Services did a big review of all pain treatments, medications, medical devices, and therapies. It's a government report, so you can find it online. If you look at the section in behavioral and psychological treatments, you'll see that most every approach to therapy that we have helps people manage the experience of pain better,
Mm.
which is lovely. There are little differences and stuff with the different therapies, but there are a small group of what are called psychophysiological approaches that actually can alter or eliminate the experience of pain. There are three of them. There's hypnotherapy, there's relaxation training, and there's biofeedback. And so we are considered not just standard of care, but a best practice for pain relief by the U.S. government. Um, So I'll give you my quick illustration of this. You're not aware of your shoes until I mention it, or if you're barefooted, now you're aware of your feet. Right.
That's it.
So there's a signal going from your foot all the way up to your limbic system. Limbic is stress, anxiety, fight or flight, in charge of your survival and keeping you safe. It's midbrain. If you drew a line between your ears and straight back from your eyes, where that crosses is pretty much where all it sits. Your limbic system doesn't know what shoes are, but knows that that signal is not a threat. And so the signal is typically not getting passed up to the higher cortical structures like cognitive processing, the big walnut looking part of your brain up top, not getting passed up to higher cortical structures. So you're not aware of your shoes, which is really good because like limbic processing is fast and vast. It is at least a third of a second faster than cognition, which is why cognitive therapy can only try to help you manage problems after they happen because they're limbic. Fast and vast, and it handles way more information than cognition. And so if you were constantly flooded in your neocortex with all this like sensory input that the limbic's handling, it would drive you crazy. It would be overwhelming.
Right. Right.
Right. So the key thing here is you don't experience most sensation that comes in. Feel your hair, feel your clothes, peripheral vision, little smell, sounds in the room, all this stuff. Most of that, you're not aware of it. Like your limbic's got it, you're not aware of it. Let's say you get a cut on your hand. There's a signal that travels from your hand up to your limbic. That is a threat to the body, like a wound to the body. And so it's a threat. So it gets past the higher cortical structures. You're like, ow, I feel pain.
Right.
Pain is not the wound to your body. Pain is the registration of the signal in the higher structures of the brain. And when I say pain is not the wound to your body, I'm not talking like psychologically or metaphorically. This is the standard medical definition of pain. It's the International Society of Pain Studies that are the people that define all this stuff. And so what you see on neuroimaging is really straightforward. With hypnosis, we fuzz up the signal between the limbic and the higher structures. The thalamus is actually the gateway. The signal doesn't get through, and so you don't experience pain. We're not fixing your body. If you got a bad back, you can't bend certain ways or lift certain things. I can get your back to stop hurting, but you still can't bend certain ways or lift certain things. I can talk a little bit about chronic pain if you want me to do that, but was that okay so far?
Yeah, I'm wondering. I love the fact that this is the best standard of care for pain. And I'm also wondering about healing the body too. Like, I know we're not chiropractors, and I know we're not, at least I'm not someone that can prescribe or treat certain conditions. And at the same time, you mentioned Erickson before, and I'm remembering him where he was paralyzed from polio, right? And,
Uh-huh.
and then, but yet something in his mind was able to get him up and walk again. So I'm wondering, like, I won't, I almost say the word miracle. Like, I'm sure.
Well, the Erickson story is really interesting. He was, I think, 17. I'd have to like get back to the time. They're living in like the Dakotas somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in like, what was it, the 1920s or something? I'd have to go check my dates. Anyway, Erickson polio, apparently like he's in bed completely paralyzed, and the doctor came in and told his parents to go ahead and call the undertaker because he wouldn't make it through till morning. And Erickson talks about that he was determined to live through the night just to piss the guy off. But they had a thing where like, and this was not them being cruel to him, they were trying to be as good to him as they could, but it's like a farm family, and you can't have someone caretaking this guy all the time. And so what they did was tied him to a chair, like he could not move. So they tied him to like, you've probably seen just like a wooden chair, like in an old farmhouse.
Right,
They
right.
tied him to a chair in a room, and there was a window in the room. And outside the window was a tree that he remembered playing in when he was a kid, but he couldn't see the tree from where the chair was sitting. And Erickson reports that just over the course of the day, he's like daydreaming about the trees, like thinking about the trees, like remembering when he was a kid. And at the end of the day, the chair had moved so that
Mm,
he could see the tree out the window.
wow.
Now, I think what's going on here, the way the story makes sense, and this is Erickson as a teenager. This is not Dr. Erickson,
Right.
who incidentally became a physician, a psychiatrist, because he was looking for a job where he didn't have to work. So, there you go. And he had like an aunt that decided to pay for medical school for him. So, there you are. But um, I think cognitive processing was not working to drive his body. He couldn't consciously move, but limbic system processing is still online. And I think that's what moved his body. Like when you're asleep, cognitive processing is offline. So if you're moving when you're asleep, it's not cognition. It's the limbic system that's engaged. And same kind of thing where you get like hypnotic catalepsy with like party tricks, which are fun. And so I think yeah, the chair ended up moving not because Erickson was consciously trying to move, but because at a subconscious, at a limbic processing level, his body just did that.
Fascinating. And I'm wondering how that ties into your healing. You said something with your back. Do you think that something in your limbic system was also causing healing besides the treatment you were getting medically?
Well, now what I was talking about there was just pain relief. But when we talk about like medical healing, I always want to be really careful with this, and I don't ever want to go. I'm a standard of care guy. I like you mentioned the award, and IACT is a great organization. But if I'm thinking about um, kind of my pinnacle professional accomplishment to this point, I actually was invited to contribute to a medical textbook, Essential Psychopathology and Its Treatment, published by Norton, which is a major publisher. It is a medical textbook for training in psychiatry, and I am contributing to the upcoming fifth edition, which should be coming out in January 2026. I'm the only contributor in that book that's not an MD. And so, I am a standard of care guy. I like for things to be based in solid research. Um, I mean, there is good research, for example, on altering autoimmune disorders, on altering allergy type responses. Um, I do think that there are some things that you can do that stimulate a little bit of healing. There are old processes, if you go back in the day, where people would do what was called wart charming, and it looks a lot like hypnosis, where like the root doctor would go out and charm a wart, and the wart would like go away. And if I'm going to explain that, I mean, your body, your immune system can attack those things and just get rid of them, but also, kind of cut off nutrients to it and stuff. So I feel like it's really unethical and very wrong to promise people things like, sure, we can treat your cancer or something like that.
Right.
But, hypnosis is a great treatment for anxiety. Anxiety makes all general medical conditions worse. And so while we can't necessarily get rid of a medical condition, if we can pull around down co-occurring anxiety, usually the prognosis gets better. I do think there's some physical effects that you get with hypnosis that can be documented. Again, they're mostly like immune response type changes. Um, I had a client that I worked with recently that had brain injury. And with this client, I also think there was a genetic factor that was involved, the brain injury a little bit, um, that had undergone a treatment in a different state, where they actually used magnetic stimulation of the brain, kind of like transcranial magnetic stimulation, but this sounded a little bit different. To get blood flow to go around the affected areas and to go differently. The treatment was expensive and it was difficult for the family to travel to a different state. And so, um, you can do some things that alter blood flow a little bit with hypnosis. And I'm like, well, I don't know if it'll help or not, but like we'll just do something and we'll just visualize like healing and different
Right.
blood flow and stuff like that. I don't have a way to measure her brain, but I know that like she's had significant alleviation of symptoms. Things have gotten substantively better. So I'm not going to go out and say we can get rid of a medical condition, but it doesn't hurt for us to work around the edges. You don't want to overpromise though. Like you don't want someone, I can get a tumor to stop hurting, but the cancer will still kill you.
It's
We don't do that.
notable. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But a lot of what drives me, my mind was going all over when you're talking because there's so many points. Like we could talk about neuroplasticity, we could talk about the effects of visualization. And at the core of it, what drives me is part of my background in religion. I used to be a pastor. And what bothered me so much where Jesus would say, "These works and greater shall you do." And one of them was blindness. Now, my day job, well, it's quickly becoming hypnosis, but my day job right now is working with blind veterans at the VA hospital, where we treat them, not treat them, but we teach them how to use cane skills and all that. And there's that certain type of blindness, that functional blindness, where the eyes work, the optic nerve is intact, the eyes are fine physically, but the brain, either through trauma or a brain injury, tells them that they're blind. Now, I've seen cognitive behavior therapy be effective with this population of blindness. So, over a course of a year or more, they get some eyesight back. And I'm wondering, because what's happening is maybe, and you're the doctor here, I'm wondering if it's the brain rewiring, kind of like Oliver Sacks and what he demonstrated as those axons start reforming and creating new neural networks and teaching the brain that everything is okay. So my theory, and eventually I would love to do a study on this and have people do a study on it, have a control group, of course, and then have another group that goes through the CBT and another group, hypnosis, and just see if it would be almost like a Jesus. So what would be the validity in that? What do you think would happen?
Well, Jesus's miracles are above my pay grade, and
There.
I am not going to be like comparing what we do to that. Um, but I guess I do want to talk about functional neurological disorder, and thank you. And this is like it's really significant for me. Um, in fact, I'm going to be presenting on a treatment for this at the European Society of Hypnosis Congress in Scotland in August. That is all medical practitioners. There are no lay hypnotists in the organization. And it is an umbrella organization that represents national organizations in something like 23 countries. It's got like 48,000 members. So I'm very excited about it. We don't actually, the functional neurological disorder is a psychiatric diagnosis. It's like in the DSM. But you look up a book like Selecting Effective Treatments, and you look up functional neurological disorder, and we do not have a treatment for functional neurological disorder. What we've got is cognitive behavior therapy for co-occurring depression, not even for the disorder itself. But I've actually got a treatment for this. I talked about it at the London conference back in November. I'm going to describe it in Scotland. I believe I've done it like HypnoThoughts in Las Vegas. I think it's a really good process. Someone needs to do like randomized controlled trial on it. I'm a clinician, and so, um, but the reason we're sitting here is because of exactly what you're talking about. If you go back in the history of hypnosis, we've got Mesmer, Franz Anton Mesmer back in Vienna in the day. He runs into a Roman Catholic priest named Maximilian Hell, which is like the most badass priest name there ever was. Father Hell is running around the Carpathian Mountains, which is like Dracula country later when like Bram Stoker gets around to being born and writing the book. And he's doing exorcisms with an iron cross. So again, the most badass thing ever. Father Hell, Carpathian Mountains, iron cross exorcisms right there. Mesmer, it's the days of early modern science. Mesmer looks at this and goes, um, it's not the cross, it's the iron. And his theory was animal magnetism, not I'm so sexy, you must be with me, but like actual magnetic fluids in the body, which we now know, of course, is crazy. But at the time, it wasn't a crazy theory. And so Mesmer went out and got himself an iron rod, and he's running around Vienna and he's waving his rod around, and people are getting better from stuff. So it's the Holy Roman Empire. Which I got to quote Voltaire on this. It was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. But the empress was Maria Theresa. And her favorite pianist was a courtier, a 19-year-old young woman named Marie-Therese von Paradis, who was a fabulous babe. And we've got like paintings and stuff of her, and she was blind. And Mesmer cured Marie-Therese von Paradis of her blindness. Now, when you heal the Empress's favorite attractive young pianist of blindness, you become super famous, which is exactly what happened in the 1700s in Vienna. Um, and like Mesmer then married very wealthy, and there's a report that Mozart played a concert in his backyard, and things went on from there. So yeah, the cure of functional neurological disorder goes far back. It's essentially the beginning of modern hypnosis with Mesmer, and exactly why we're all sitting here. Because if he had not healed Marie-Therese van Paradis of her blindness, I don't think we would ever heard of the guy. There was nothing there to do it. So the treatment protocol that I've got, and I'll just give it to your folks here, and if someone decides to do a clinical trial on this, I would love to do it with you. And please credit me, but like, here we go. So if you think about it, party tricks. You, of course, can do hypnotic catalepsy with someone like their arm is rigid and they try to move it and they can't. That is an interesting phenomena, hypnotic catalepsy. Clinically trained observers can't tell the difference between, I'm holding my arm out and like hypnotic catalepsy. But if I'm holding my arm out right here and presumably I'm awake, this is not hypnosis. If we were running neuroimaging on me, what we would see would be increases in the left ventrolateral prefrontal cortex and a number of right posterior cortical structures. If you hypnotize me and my arm is rigid and I try to move my arm and I can't, that looks completely different on neuroimaging. That's right-sided increases in the orbifrontal cortex and the cerebellum, left-sided increases in the thalamus and pituitary. So it's completely different. In other studies, if I move my arm, the motor cortex is engaged. So you can think about, I move my arm, the motor cortex is like, boom. But with hypnotic catalepsy, where I try to move my arm and I can't, what you see with the motor cortex is kind of a pre-engagement of the motor cortex, and then it disengages. It doesn't fully engage. So it's like, and it's like, so it looks completely different, like from faking. And it's all limbic stuff that's driving that. Like if you think about animals out in nature, thrashing around a lot while you're asleep is not going to work out because it'll attract predators, and natural selection says no. When you're asleep, you don't move very much, and cognitive processing is offline. It's limbic processing that's causing body movement. And so when you think about functional neurological disorder, it feels outside of cognitive control, like neocortex stuff. I can't control these seizures or the speechlessness, which was a client that I treated, or whatever. These things are happening, or the blindness, these things are happening. They feel outside of cognitive control. Um, Jean-Martin Charcot is the father of neurology back in the 1890s in Paris, and he surmised that like the effects of hysteria, which is functional neurological, what they called it then, and the effects of hypnosis were similar. And they are similar. They're not exactly the same in the brain, but they're kind of similar. Um, so with a hypnotic process, what I do, my treatment is like at a party. I'm doing rapid inductions where the person's going up and down and up and down. I'm doing a lot of catalepsy, arm catalepsy, eye catalepsy. I'll have people stand and do like a full body catalepsy with them. I'll give general, probably direct suggestions of like ego strengthening or kind of the opposite of whatever the symptom is. The young woman that I had that couldn't speak for 6 months, I'm talking about her mouth being moist and her voice flows through smoothly and stuff like that. Where I've had people that had seizures, a lot of language are just like, you're steady, your body feels in control, you're moving effortlessly and easily, like that kind of thing. But I don't even think that like the suggestion work in this case is important. It's not about that reframing. I think what's happening is the experience of out of control. I can't move my arm, and in control. Wow, I'm moving it out of control and in control. That breaks the effect of the functional neurological issue. The brain just has it modeled differently. Hypnotic changes don't feel like something I'm doing. They feel like something that's happening. They feel unconscious automatic, just like mental disorders feel unconscious automatic.
Right.
So I think with the functional neurological treatment that it's actually creating, um, it's the brain is experiencing out of control and in control that's operating in a way that's very similar to the functional neurological issue, and that just breaks the circle.
Interesting. It breaks the circle. I love that.
Hmm.
And then,
Also, go ahead.
oh yeah, I love to hear you keep talking. You mentioned something that you were working on, a study that you were participating in or designing.
I actually am an investigator in a randomized controlled trial. And I got my qualification to do medical experimentation on human subjects, which is turns out not easy to get, and it
Right.
shouldn't be. That is a completely different thing. That is with a large medical group here in South Carolina, Prisma Hospitals, and also Clemson University, which is a major research university here in South Carolina. The study is virtual reality assisted guided imagery for pain relief in patients with active cancer. The principal investigator is a palliative care and pain management physician. The other people that are involved with it are all doing the virtual reality stuff with like the nature lab at Clemson University. I'm the person that designed the psychological part of the study, that did all of the content. So that one's not related to functional neurological. I want someone to study the process that I just listed out for you.
Yes, I
We
do
need a
too.
clinical study on that, and so that needs to happen. But
Yes.
I am
Let's
a
make it
clinician
happen.
in practice. I am not an academic, so I need someone else to come along and go, "Yes, Frederick, we'll pull you in with this. Let's do it."
Right. Yes. All right. Let's put it out in the universe and let's go. Let's do this down the
If
road.
you're a doctor and you're listening to this and you want a clinical study, talk to me. If you work with FNS, it'll be great. It is probably the most common outpatient presentation in neurology clinics after migraine. And, my experience is that neurologists don't have any clue what to do with it
Right.
because there's not a standard treatment.
We're putting it out there. Let's make it happen.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
I want to loop back because you mentioned about the ethics and we can't promise anything. I'm wondering how that goes along with the person's belief because with Mesmer, a lot of it was the show and making people believe it. So how much, and again, I go back to Jesus, like it's like they say that's the person's belief and then people are praying, help my unbelief. So how do we balance the ethics? Like you're talking to a client and you're saying, well, I don't know if it's going to work. In my mind, I'm like, well, does that defeat the process or does that help the process?
I think that being truthful with people actually helps the process. Um, a starting principle for me is that emotions drive behavior. Emotions, not information, drives behavior. And there's a difference between, emotions drive behavior. Stories frame emotion and create meaning.
Mm.
Okay. And story is different from information. Story has an emotional component to it, has a belief component to it. And again, I'm not comparing this to like New Testament descriptions of faith. But story has a belief component to it. Everyone with a fear of flying knows that they are safer on a plane than in the car going to the airport. Like everyone knows that. But that has cured zero cases of flying phobia ever because like information is not powerful. What is powerful is story. So we talked about Mesmer and Father Hell. We talked about Erickson and the chair. Like these stories, they grab us and we're involved with it, and it resonates. And I think that emotional component is what resonates with the limbic system. Information is stuck up here. Story engages us. You feel it in your body,
Right.
right? And so emotion drives behavior. Stories frame emotion, create meaning. So when I'm describing to someone how hypnosis operates, um, so the little voice in your head you think of as you is called your executive function. And the executive function is your frontal lobe, which is this big walnut-looking part of your brain up here. As you relax, that part of your brain shuts down, shuts off. What you see on neural imaging is the electrical activity of the frontal significantly decreases as you relax. Cerebral blood flow significantly decreases as you relax. That emotional limbic system processing is always on, always operating, always keeping you safe, even when you're asleep. That stuff never shuts down. So when you think about it, there's this emotional foundation underneath everything that's always on. Cognition, cognitive processing is piled on top of it. As you relax, cognitive processing goes down. If I can work with you in a more relaxed state, it lets me work with you more directly at the level of emotion. Since emotion drives everything, it's a very fast process for change. So, what is hypnosis? Well, at a neurological level, the most basic definition is it's a state of frontal lobe disengagement. So, when I'm telling a person that, like, we're empiricists, like our society, you got a car, you fly on planes, we're talking on I'm talking on my iPhone, which is basically made out of sand. Like we are a technological society, and empiricism, the scientific method, has created this society. And even people are like, "Oh, I like alternative things." Fine, but like you still drive your car, you still get on planes, you still turn on electric lights. Our culture tale is science. And so when I give someone a scientific explanation for how this works, I think it increases the likelihood that the process will be effective. And so I actually tell people, no one can guarantee human behavior because you can't guarantee, well, no one can guarantee psychotherapy because you can't guarantee human behavior. But I have a strong degree of confidence that what we're going to do will help you. So they're like hearing something that makes sense. If they come in and I'm like, I can solve all your problems, they're going to be like, well, I don't know about that. If I'm like, well, here's some science and this is how it works. And, it works great. A lot of the time, I have a strong degree of confidence I can help you. The person's like, yep, I'm all in.
I love that. And I love what you're saying earlier too about how when we lower anxiety, it affects so many other parts of us. I'm even wondering with when you talk about that big C word, cancer, and you're working with people and helping them cognitively deal with the cancer. And I'm thinking about what's the meditation guy, Zen, John Kabat-Zinn, and he
Yeah,
would
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's mindfulness. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So I'm wondering if hypnosis is a way to help in the treatment. Not that you wouldn't get treated for cancer, not that it's a cure for cancer, but I wonder if it helps in the outcomes.
I mean, it would help with the outcome. It is not a cure for cancer. I just
Right.
want to plain flat out say that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is an article by a guy named Oakley Ray from around 2000. It was in American Psychologist, which is a peer-reviewed journal. It's called "How the Mind Hurts and Heals the Body," and he goes through not mental health but medical diagnoses and what we know about how mental framing affects that. Some things nothing, but other things a lot. Basically anything that can be helped with placebo, you can do even a better job with it with hypnosis. Like, but there are a lot of things that we can help with. So I think that mind and body are connected, and there are ways that we can work together. Interesting that you mentioned mindfulness and also meditation, and we're talking about hypnosis. Um, there's a lot of screwiness with with terminology here. um, I would submit to you that there is a significant, even though we use the term mindfulness meditation, that they are not the same. That there is a significant difference between mindfulness processes and meditative processes. Meditative processes, to me, now I'm a hypnotist, not a mindfulness or meditation guy, but meditative processes to me look a lot like self hypnosis, and similar things seem to be going on in the brain. Mindfulness actually operates in an opposite way in the brain than the hypnosis. They're completely different. They are like they look different on neuroimaging. And people that score high on mindfulness scales tend to do poorly on hypnotic scales, and people that do great with hypnotic suggestibility tend to do poorly with mindfulness. So on both behavioral scales and neuroimaging, like mindfulness and hypnosis are kind of the opposite of each other. When you think about like mindfulness for pain relief, for example, people that do mindfulness for pain relief do not report a decrease in the frequency, intensity, or duration of the pain. They will tell you it's just as bad as it ever was. But what they'll also tell you is super interesting, and that is, but it doesn't matter as much anymore. I don't care about it as much, which is better. So with hypnosis, you can actually get rid of the experience of pain. With mindfulness, what you get is an effect where, yeah, pain's still happening, doesn't really bother me somehow. So if our process doesn't work, maybe because the person's not highly hypnotizable, which is a genetic trait, um, then mindfulness is like a great fallback. Now, some of you may be going, oh, yeah, I've seen mindfulness that got rid of pain. Well, a lot of times people begin to combine mindfulness with suggestions of relaxation, which means you're not doing mindfulness, it's hypnosis.
Interesting.
Mindfulness is hypercognition. It is conscious mind turned up full blast.
Oh, yeah, I see the difference.
I'm feeling all my experiences. I'm aware of everything that's going on. I am feeling everything that's happening. That is the opposite of hypnosis, which is a dissociative state.
Interesting. And that reminds me of how you started this. Like, I didn't think of my shoes until you said, think of your shoes. And mindfulness is I'm thinking my shoes, I'm thinking of the weather, I'm thinking of
Yeah, I'm completely aware of my shoes and my shirt and all the smells in the room and absolutely
right.
everything's going on. That is mindfulness. And it's a great I mean, basically, hypnosis is a Western process that involves relaxation to create emotional change.
Hmm.
Mindfulness is an Eastern process that really doesn't involve relaxation, um, but it's about being all right with your emotions. They are both great processes. They both have venerable histories. They're both lovely, but they are different. There's a difference between dissociation and emotional change and cognitive engagement and being all right with my emotions.
Right.
Right.
Interesting. I know we want to get somewhere in a moment, but my mind is stuck on the story about the airplane. How we know the facts and figures about it's safe to go on the airplane. And then you mentioned the story is better than just. So I'm wondering, do you have a story for those listening that might be air traveling soon?
I mean, I just do the theater process for phobia relief, and I mean, most hypnotists are probably familiar with that. So, you ask the client, like, well, when does the bad thing happen? And then what is it? What are the physical sensations you've got? What are the emotional feelings you got? What are the cognitions that go along with it? Always in that order, because if you ask cognitions first, it pulls the person out of their emotion. So, physical sensation, emotional feelings, cognitions, you write all that down. You do a hypnotic induction, you take them into a theater, they're in a chair, they're comfortable, they're safe, they're seeing, a video or a movie screen up in front of them. They see, themselves getting on the plane, whatever happens that triggers it, turbulence, flight attendant speech, landing. One woman one time was even like baggage claim. I'm like, baggage claim after the flight? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Like, whatever it is that's the problem, then you intensify the bad experience, physical, emotional, cognitive, like just making that as bad as it can be. You fade out color, sound, and motion. Take the picture down, frame it up, throw it away, get rid of it. Then you have them come back to the chair. They're the producer, writer, director of their movie of their life. They have the same movie, only different. So they get on the plane, there's turbulence, there's baggage claim, or the flight attendant speech, or by going to the airport, whatever it is. And you do the opposite of whatever their stuff was. So, they're feeling, if their heart was pounding, your heartbeat is normal. If their breathing was labored, their breathing is fine. If their hands were sweaty, their hands are comfortable and dry, whatever. Opposite emotional feelings, positive cognitions along the lines of what it was negative. You intensify the color, the sound, the motion, and you emerge them. That's the
Well,
treatment for phobia, but it's not new with me. Like, that is a standard thing.
that's the standard. And I love how you kept saying the word emotion because that's what stories carry as emotion. So it's not a story of someone else, it's their story that you're rewriting with that emotion.
Yeah.
And I love everything you are offering here. And I know that you have a class coming up where you're teaching people hypnosis to be able to be hypnotists. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you. I actually am teaching a certification class, at least the NGH certification, but I'll cover their material, but I actually cover a lot more in that class. I really think of it as kind of a master class in hypnosis. So if you're a new hypnotist, or you want to be a hypnotist, it's a great class. If you're a hypnotist and you want to like boot up your skills, it's a great class. So that begins in the middle of January. There's a big discount if you register before the end of the year. It runs over several weekends, and people can take it live here in Columbia, South Carolina, but I also have people from all over the world that take it via Zoom. I've had people from Europe, Argentina, like a bunch of different places, Canada, that have participated in my class, and I'd be delighted to have you on. So I know you'll probably stick this with the podcast, but the website is Watermark, WATERMARK, Watermark Columbia. If you're naming your website, don't go with your city name, but like I did, and it's too late to change it. So Watermark Columbia, COLUMBIA, watermarkcolumbia.com. And if you click on training and speaking, you'll see that there. There are also like a bunch of conferences. I'm speaking at the Hypnotic conference in Belgium in May. I'll be at the IAC conference in May down in Orlando, Florida, where they gave me the award. I'm going to be speaking at the European Society Congress in August in Scotland. I'll be speaking at the Hypnosis Congress in Zurich in June. I've got 2 3-day workshops in Germany in October that I'm teaching on pain relief. So if you're over there, come on along. I'll be speaking English, of course, but there'll be live translation into German. I'll also be at Hypnothoughts in Las Vegas, of course, in July. So any of that you're interested in, like watermarkcolumbia.com, just click training and speaking. You'll see my class, which you should totally sign up for. And then there's all this stuff and more coming than what's there listed now. So there'll be more in January.
I know. I every time it seems like every day I'm on Facebook and I see your profile, something new pops up.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. So yeah, I've been asked to keynote a couple of new conferences, so we're kind of talking about that. It's probably a little bit early to say what they would be,
Sure.
and we'll see if they actually happen. I so
Very
both things
exciting.
around here and things far away. So very exciting. So thank you.
And in just a moment, we'll have you guide our listeners or watchers in a little session, a little micro taste of what this hypnotic experience can be like. And before we do that, I'm wondering, is there a message, your message that you want to get out to the world?
Interesting thought there. I mean, I guess the key thought would be what I just said a minute ago is that emotion, not information, drives behavior. Stories frame emotion and create meaning. Um, Cognitive therapy is helpful for a lot of people, but it's symptom management. It is using the upper part of your brain to try to manage stuff that's happening in the lower part of your brain. Hypnosis gives us a different kind of tool where we actually can work with that emotional processing in the brain to create changes that are real and lasting, and they feel unconscious automatic. It doesn't feel like a decision, it feels like a realization. Um, we have the opportunity to give profound change at an experiential level.
Amazing.
So
No,
there you go.
I feel that you're talking, and it's just like it's sending a signal across my body. It sounds so wonderful. I hope it really touches a lot of people. I know it will. All right. So without further ado,
Well, let me ask you a question right quick. Oh, yeah, it's just very because I know you're getting into the process. You know your audience, like, what do you want to process on? Like, what would be helpful for people? If stuff people are thinking about was better, what would that be like?
it's interesting because you mentioned the word anxiety earlier. And last week I sent out an email. I just started this Transwell. I just started it maybe 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
And I did a test before I launched my main thing. And this was all launched, not to go too into the weeds here, but based off of my experience with a cardiac arrest, where I went into, I just died instantly. My heart just stopped, and I went into this place. And when I came back alive, when it shocked me back to life, I was like, okay, processing that experience, and what's my purpose? So
Ryan, I'm glad you're here.
I am too.
I mean, I really am. Like, that's powerful story. I'm not going to breeze by that. Like, I'm glad you're here, and I can't identify with it. Like I haven't had that experience, but I'm feeling what you're telling me about having a sense of purpose that just comes out of that.
Absolutely. And so it was a search for a while. I became a shaman. You mentioned on your website about having the wilderness experience. So I became a shaman. I did Reiki. I sat with people in hospice and learned that communication that happens between people that's not verbal. And then I even did stand up comedy for a while, like, just to, and then hypnosis. I'm like, wow. And so everything I do with Transwell now is under the word awaken. So just like I awoke from death, it's almost like a rebirth. I now have a mission to help people awaken. And so I did a test at the beginning of December. I just opened up Transwell's door, just put the sign out front at the very end of, like, after Thanksgiving, and then sent out. I said, I know the holidays are overwhelming. Here's a free 5-minute audio to help you reset. And in about 2 weeks' time, I've got 2,000 email addresses, and it's growing every day because it resonates with people. And then last week, I sent out an email to those people. I said, what is it that I can help you with? And the number one answer by far, anxiety. I had other people saying quit smoking, other people saying insomnia, other people saying calming down their mind, but by far, anxiety. And so this podcast is called Awaken with Ryan DeYoung. And I believe that most of the listeners and watchers are resonating with that word.
I know you want to get into a process, and I don't want to pull things out longer than you want, but would you be good for like 3 minutes on hypnosis and anxiety?
Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, we had time.
Okay. Um, we've had behavioral measures of hypnotizability for 60 or 70 years. There's the Stanford scale, there's a Harvard group scale, there's the HIP, which everybody uses for research. Um, with the advent of neuroimaging, people ask the question, here are these behavioral scales measuring something that we can see in terms of brain function? And the answer is yes. People that are more highly hypnotizable, which actually, by the way, again, turns out to be a genetic trait. People that are more highly hypnotizable have a greater functional connection between two specific brain regions. One is your prefrontal cortex, which is an executive control region right here behind your forehead. The other is basically the salience network of the limbic system, which is the part that's keeping up with your shoes and all that.
Mhm.
Um, Specifically, you can look in the studies at the anterior cingulate, which is involved in emotions of horror and trauma and addictive behaviors, anything that looks voluntary from the outside but doesn't feel voluntary from the inside. Um, those two regions, prefrontal and anterior cingulate, are really hardwired together in the primate brain anyway. But in people that are more highly hypnotizable, they're functionally connected. They coactivate, they fire at the same time. Coactivation of the prefrontal anterior cingulate, not common for the population, but for people that exhibit anxiety disorders, unipolar depression, post-traumatic responses that are clinical, functional neurological disorders, and dissociative disorders, not schizophrenia, um, exhibit that same functionality, that same coactivation of the prefrontal anterior cingulate. So when you use this kind of process to treat those kind of issues, we are taking advantage of the same brain functionality that got you in trouble to get you out of it. And the presence of any of those diagnoses indicates high hypnotizability. So if you want to know you can be successful with your clients, you should treat uh, post-traumatic responses that are clinical, anxiety, unipolar depression, functional neurological issues, and if you're clinically trained for it, dissociative disorders, um, you're going to be great because like the treatment neurologically aligns with the diagnosis. So this is a fantastic process to treat anxiety.
Interesting. I love that. I love that it's connected.
Yeah, it's you got to dig it out of the studies, but they're there. So yeah, let's do a quick little guided imagery or a little hypnosis process on just relieving anxiety.
Sounds great. I'll mute my mic and let you have at it.
About how long do you want it to last?
I'm a big intuition guy. I usually tell people 5 to 10 minutes.
We'll go right there. That'll be great.
Yeah.
You say, you give me the signal and I'll go. With your eyes comfortably closed, I'd invite you to relax and breathe deeply, allowing your breathing to be deep and rhythmic, natural and spontaneous. Just deep, soothing breaths, calm, relaxed, at peace. Enjoying the gentle sensations of relaxation, comfortable sensations moving through your body, which are good for deep hypnosis. The smooth heaviness of arms and legs and eyelids, the slow deep rhythm of your breathing. And there's a sense of peace, a sense of comfort, just breathing in deeply and breathing out completely, and breathing in deeply and breathing out completely, allowing your breathing to be deep and rhythmic, natural and spontaneous. The slow deep rhythm of your heartbeat. You're breathing out stress, breathing in peace, breathing out worry, breathing in planning, breathing out anxiety, breathing in joy. Each breath takes you deeper. Each word takes you deeper, drifting, flowing, dreaming, comfortable. And I wonder if you'd like to double the relaxation you feel in your neck and shoulders now, if you'd prefer to try to keep that stress a little longer while other parts of your body relax first. Never mind, that's not important. So much more important to just enjoy the rhythm of your breathing and the slow, deep rhythm of your heartbeat. And you know, you can relax even more deeply if you think of a beautiful day. So I'd like to invite you to just imagine just a beautiful autumn day where the air is crisp and a little cool, and you can just be walking along. Your body moves easily, effortlessly, fluidly, comfortably. There's a sense of strength, a sense of stability about you. You can see the beautiful colors of the leaves all around you, the reds and oranges and yellows. And you're just walking along your path, moving forward. There's a sense of strength, and you feel it, a deep sense of confidence and self worth. Sometimes the path is more difficult or more clear. Sometimes you're climbing over roots or rocks. Other times it seems wide and straight, but you're following a path that makes sense for you. And there's a part of you that knows the direction to go. Two paths divide in the wood. And there's a part of you that knows the path for you. And you can feel that sense of creativity, that sense of engagement, the gentle rustle of the breeze and the leaves of the trees, the pleasant woodsy fragrance. Occasionally you walk out into a meadow and you can see mountains and ridges and valleys and glimpses of the path ahead. And there's a sense of perspective. And you can really see things moving forward for you in ways that are so positive. You feel that sense of worth and confidence. And as you continue to walk through the wood, you can hear a stream flowing, everything just flowing in the right direction, the water cascading over the rocks. You come around a bend in the path, and there is a pool in front of you. It looks crystal clear and absolutely still. And even though there's a part of you that knows that the stream is flowing rapidly, in this place, at this pool, it looks absolutely still. And you can allow, as you sit down on the sand, to let your gaze just go softly through the water. You can see the ripples in the sand at the bottom. Is it 2 feet deep or 10? It's so hard to tell. Little ripples that part of you knows is caused by the current of the stream, and yet it looks just crystal clear and still. And the river stones that are smooth and the sand that wraps around it. It's like the world's most beautiful Zen garden at the bottom of this pool. The gentle rustle of the breeze and the leaves of the trees. And off to the side in your peripheral vision, there's a leaf that breaks free that catches your attention. It begins to gently waft and float down, down, dancing on the wind, landing on the surface of the pool off to the side. But of course, this is a fast flowing stream in reality. And in a moment, in an instant, it's washed across your field of vision, washed away downstream, gone from your thoughts, gone from your mind, gone even from your body's awareness. And you can feel that sense of flow in your gut, the core of your being, a sense of peace and flow and comfort, a deep sense of confidence and self worth and value in your gut, the core of your being. And you're breathing the crisp air, the beautiful colors of the leaves, reds and yellows and oranges. And another leaf breaks free and begins to gently spin on the wind, dancing down to alight on the surface of the water. Imagine a negative thought just flying out of your mind onto that leaf. Imagine seeing it there vivid in your handwriting. Imagine that negative thought just being washed away across your field of vision, downstream, gone from your thoughts, gone from your mind, gone even from your body's awareness. So easy to remember to forget by simply forgetting to remember that you simply let it go. And you're breathing and you're comfortable. And a leaf breaks free and begins to gently dance on the cool autumn breeze. Landing on the surface of the water, imagine a negative emotion just leaving your body out onto that leaf, the leaf becoming brown and crumpled, and automatically, immediately, it's just washed away by the purity of the stream, the clarity of the water, washed away downstream, gone from your thoughts, gone from your mind, gone even from your body's awareness. And your gaze is soft through the water and the depths. And is it 2 feet deep or 10? And that clarity. And it's moments like this when you can think, consider, and things seem different and they feel better. And there's a creative part of you that has perspective. You stand up on this beautiful autumn day, the gentle rustle of the breeze and the leaves of the trees. And there are paths, possibilities, opportunities, ways to move forward. And there's a part of you that knows the way forward for you. And you set off on your path. Your body is strong, your breathing is deepened from the diaphragm. The path ahead may be challenging. You're ready, and you feel that sense of confidence, that sense of readiness, ready to move forward. If this is a time for you to sleep, you can let yourself just sleep deeply now. Beautiful dreams, deep restorative sleep, healing, beautiful dreams of your future filled with opportunities for health and harmony, joy, and happiness. If this is a time for you to be awake, alert, conscious, you can begin the process of coming back into the room. When you're ready to feel particularly good for no particular reason at all, when you're ready to feel a sense of confidence, self-worth, joy, when you're ready to step forward into your day, present in the moment, being your best self, moving forward toward your future in ways that are so positive and powerful, then at that moment your eyes will open. When your eyes open, you'll be wide awake, feeling fine, in perfect health, and realizing, of course, that every day, in every way, your life is getting better, your world is getting better, and this is so. I think that was 9 minutes.
That I'm not sure. I was gone, man. I went through process. I was like, wow, because a lot of times we're in the hypnotic process. We're talking about slow voice, and but your language pattern, everything was like so mystical and powerful. I remember at one point, like remembering to forgetting to remember. I was like, I cracked a smile because I just took me further into the experience. Just I don't know where that leaf went, but that's okay.
It's just gone.
It's gone.
Just gone.
Just gone. Wow. So thank you so much, Dr. Mao. I'll be including in the description a link to your website, maybe some of the studies that you mentioned. And I'm excited to see where this goes and do that study that you mentioned. Hopefully, we got some people that are listening that are like, yes, let's do it.
That would be awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for including me and having me on. I really, appreciate it, and you're very generous, and thank you.
Thank you.
Great.